point of view.
Yeah. Yeah.
God, like everyone has like 10. Yeah, it is. Oh, he is the best dog. He was Things are better. Battery probably does. This auto is not. Otherwise, I know. No, but I've been. Glasses.
All right, everyone, the doors have been shut. It is 6:38, so I will be calling this meeting to order. First, I'm going to seek a motion to approve the minutes of our last meeting. Do I see a motion? I see a motion from Blake. I see a second from Austin. Is there anyone who objects to moving to vote on the minutes of our last meeting and approving them? All right, seeing none, that will go into the channel there. And that reminder, this will be the first attendance vote of the evening. All right, that vote is now up in the Students Assembly channel. Do you approve the cycle 12 minutes? Yes, if you do, no, if you do not, and abstain to stay out of the discussion. A reminder, our quorum is still 30 as of our last meeting here.
Make sure your friends all tell 3 more friends. It works great. Yeah.
Please make sure to get your vote in the next 15 seconds, and then I'll look to close this vote. All right, is there anyone who has not yet voted on this matter that wishes to do so? All right, seeing none, I will go ahead and close this poll. And with a vote of 43 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, and 0 abstentions, this bill, or rather this motion clearly passes. All right, so now we'll advance to the next item on our agenda, which is an officer report from our student body president. Is Sadie there in the back of the room? Okay. All right. Can I get a motion to amend the agenda to put the student body president's report at the bottom of the agenda and to strike the graduate student body president's report?
So moved.
All right, motion from Camden, second from Anna Sophia there. All right, and is there anyone who objects to amending the agenda as such? All right, seeing none, the agenda is amended. All right, so now we will advance to the next item on our agenda, which is my officer report.
How much time will our speaker need?
All right, can I have 2 or 3 minutes? Probably 3.
We'll go with 3.
Yeah. All right, good. All right. For my officer report, I will be generating position descriptions for the speaker position to be ready to be hired by our joint Senate meeting over this next few weeks. I'll also draft a new one for the internal affairs director position if we proceed to amend the Constitution to pass Bill 23-84 this evening. Over the next few weeks, I will generate the final version of the Student Senate Constitution as I have done after this meeting, and that will be handed off to the next administration's internal affairs director. I'll also generate a complete legislation packet to be distributed via the invitation to Joint Senate. This packet will include all legislation that was passed by this year's Students' Assembly. The Student Senate orientation presentation that I made a few weeks ago is being reformatted and is going to be placed with the current handbook on the document and record section of our website. Feel free to peruse that when it is posted later in the week. University Senate is going to meet again tomorrow at 3 to address the reorganization of its legislative body. If you are a student representative to the University Senate, please make sure you attend this meeting. After discussing the matter further in Senex, we have decided to move forward with the reorganization bill taking instantaneous effect rather than on a yearly delay. This bill will give each constituent Senate immediately students, faculty, and staff 18 representatives each and allow for the body to be truly representative of the community they create policy to support and serve. If you are a graduating member of Student Senate, we will be distributing cords at the Joint Senate meeting to thank people for their service in Student Senate. I'll generate a form in the weeks leading up to Joint for people to sign up and give us a more comprehensive list of what that will look like ahead of the ceremony. And finally, you'll hear this in the president's officer report later when she discusses our meeting with the chancellor. But I also just want to reiterate here that transgender individuals are being attacked on all levels right now at the state, local, and federal legislatures. And so just make sure you're supporting your transgender friends, family members, and other people to make sure that they are feeling protected and safe here in the community of Kansas. Any questions?
Are there any questions for our student body vice president? Going once, is that a hand, Chris? Okay, any questions? Going once, going twice. Thank you very much. You may sit down.
Oh. Thank you very much. Now we will proceed to our next officer report on the agenda, our treasurer, Turner Seals. Turner, how much time will you need? Perfect.
Yeah, not much left on our side of things. We spent down almost all of the $80,000 in our unallocated account, which is great. We will not go over that amount tonight with all the bills that are coming through, which is good. Let's see. Pretty much all I'm doing is just wrapping up the books, making sure all the payments get made that were promised, getting all the stipends out. April 26th is the last day to, I think, make payments. I think that's what Madison and I decided. So after that, I mean, everything is done. So just write my turnover and making sure turnover goes well for whoever's in administration next year. So yeah.
Any questions for our treasurer? All right, seeing none. Thank you, Turner. All right, so now we'll go on to the next item on our agenda, which is the approval of the consent agenda. Is there anyone who objects to any of the legislation currently presented on the consent agenda? Is there anyone who motions to approve the consent agenda? I see a motion from Chris, second from Blake. Is there anyone who objects to moving towards a vote on the consent agenda? Seeing none, that vote will be posted in the Students Assembly channel. All right, that vote has been posted in the channel. Do you approve the consent agenda? Yes, if you do, no, if you do not, and abstain, stay out of the discussion. Please get that vote in the next 30 seconds. All right, is there anyone who's not yet voted on this matter that wishes to do so? Yeah. All right, can we get a voice vote for yes for Kevin Barnes, representing first year? Yes. All right, any other issues with voting? And or anyone else that needs to make a voice vote? All right. And yeah, your vote was in favor, correct, Kevin? Perfect. All right. Well, with a vote of 42 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, and 1 abstention, the consent agenda and all 4 pieces of these legislation clearly passes. All right, now we'll move to the next item on our regular agenda, which is a bill to amend Title V, Article 2, Section 9 of the Student Senate Constitution, and that will be presented by Danae, I believe. Yeah, we can. Or I see a motion from Angela. Can you state the reason? Can you also grab a catch box so that we can get that on the stream?
Hi, motion to committee of the whole for time sensitive legislation. The reason being, I run the Student Senate email and a campus cupboard. People who run campus cupboard asked us to do something short and sweet for them. So if the body is amenable to that, it should be pretty quick.
Do I see any objections? I see a second from Farzad to go into committee of the whole. Is there anyone who objects to moving in? All right, seeing none. Angela, we are in committee of the whole, so you can go ahead and present a copy of your resolution, and then we'll take some questions. For everyone's mind here, Robert's rules aren't currently in effect, but I'll keep like a 5-minute speaker's time, and then we'll keep track of questions until we exit.
Okay, hi, everyone. So, like I said, I run the Student Senate email. So whenever you like email studentsenate@ku.edu, it goes to my inbox. And recently, some graduate students who helped facilitate campus cupboard operations reached out to KU Student Senate, basically asking that we do what we can to support them in this effort, known something along the lines of like food for fines. And so I will just read this to you. It's pretty short. And then we'll take questions. But so this is a resolution encouraging the Kansas legislature to create an addendum to the statute listed here to allow entities such as KU Parking and Transit to accept food donations to be given to campus covered in lieu of students paying a monetary sum for parking violations. So whereas the KU campus covered is an important facet of the KU community, and many students often find themselves in violation of KU parking and transit zones and receiving tickets to pay monetary fines. And other institutions such as the University of Tennessee, UT Austin, Wichita State, and the University of Florida have implemented a program by which students for several weeks out of the academic year and up to a certain amount may pay their parking fines by making donations to the campus food pantry. And whereas this statute states that entities such as KU Parking must collect money for fines, therefore be it resolved that the University of Kansas encourages the Kansas legislature to add an addendum to this statute to allow KU Parking and Transit and other such entities to collect food donations for the campus covered in lieu of a monetary sum for 1 to 2 weeks out of the academic year and up to an amount of $50 for fines not older than 2 months. Therefore, be it further resolved that upon passage of this resolution, it be sent to the following entities, those being Governor Laura Kelly, the Kansas Office of Revisor of Statutes, KU Parking and Transit, the KU Campus Covered, and the Kansas House of Representatives Committee on Transportation. And I'll just add that this was also written in conversation with KU Parking and Transit, and it was approved by the graduate students who came in with the initial ask. So I'm now open to questions.
All right, before we do questions, do I have a motion to take us out of committee of the whole? I see one from Kevin.
Yes, motion to take us out of committee of the whole with the legislation in question.
Brilliant. All right, do I see a second anywhere? Second from Farzad. All right, is there anyone who objects to moving out of committee of the whole with this legislation? All right, seeing none, we are out of committee of the whole. I'll go ahead and grant 5 minutes for questions if there are any. So let me get that there. And question from Nicole. And then, yeah, if you can just get a catch box. And is there anyone else who has a question on the floor so I can keep a list? You have a question, Camden, and then Farzad. Okay, brilliant. You can go ahead, Nicole.
Okay, it's not really a question, but I just a point of information that the Kansas legislature wrapped up last week, and so they're not going to be able to amend anything. They have veto session in 2 weeks, but that's only to finish legislation that they have that they didn't finish. So like if we sent this, it wouldn't be something that would be addressed until next year. Just because they won't have any ability to do that. So I mean, I definitely agree that we should send it. I think that we should also maybe think about like also sending it again next year, just because, you know, we can send it now and then follow up, just because a year is a long time. They're not going to meet again until January.
Yeah, that's a great idea. And we can probably do something on the administrative end, like send it now and then during like turnover to the next administration.
You can definitely put it in your turnover for the outreach director position.
Okay, yeah, sick. We can do that. Thanks, Nicole.
Thank you for your point of information. All right, now I'll go to Camden and then Farzad. Oh, you're good.
Thank you, Angela. What was the interaction with KU Transit and Parking like as you wrote this? Like, did they greenlight this? Did they say they'd be willing to do it, or?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, so I wrote to Margaretta and Quiz, and they had already been in conversations with KU Campus Covered. Campus Covered really covered their bases on this one. And basically they said a little bit of a non-answer. I mean, it was still helpful, but they said that like there have been lots of talks about this, but the stalling point is the legislature, and that was basically it, but that they would be like kind of open to it.
Any other questions on the floor? And or a motion to vote? All right, I see a motion from Farzad. I see a second from Blake. Is there anyone who opposes moving to a vote on this legislation? All right, seeing none, that'll get posted in the assembly channel. Thank you very much, Angela.
Cool. Thanks, everyone.
Huh? Oh, correct. Yeah, we will do that. Yeah. Yeah, can I also get a motion to suspend the rules by 2/3 to basically allow this to be passed without getting reviewed by councils? Motion from Anna Sophia. Do I see a second? I see a second from Nicole. Is there anyone who objects to suspending the rules to allow this legislation to pass and be signed by the president without going to councils? All right, seeing none, the rules are suspended and we will move towards that vote. All right, that vote has now been posted in the Students' Assembly channel. Do you agree with Committee of the Whole legislation? Yes, if you agree with this resolution, no, if you do not, and abstain to stay out of the discussion. Since this is Committee of the Whole legislation, it will require 2/3 to pass.
I know, so I didn't record the names.
All right, everyone, this vote is going to be canceled because it did not have recording of names on. So we're going to re-vote on this matter with name records checked.
Yeah, I had my appeal and they refunded me.
Wait, really?
They refunded me.
All right, so that has now been reposted in the channel. Do you agree with Committee of the Whole legislation? Same options as last time.
They gave you an apology letter?
Yeah.
You need to frame that.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, seriously, like go get that in like expensive enamel paper, you know, like American Psycho style. What, American Psycho? We just buy it on Amazon. I don't know if I love the Romanian subtitles that much. So how are you not in jail?
All right, if you've not yet voted, please get that in the next 10 seconds.
How did he get off the?
All right, is there anyone who has not voted on this legislation that has the ability to do so? All right, seeing no objections, I'll move to close this vote. All right. And with a vote of 31 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, and 1 abstention, this legislation clearly passes. All right. Oh, Anna Sophia, did you vote on like the cusp of that? Do you want me to record a voice vote for you? Yes? All right. Can you record a voice vote for Anna Sophia for a yes vote? All right. Now we'll move on to the next item on our agenda, which is a bill to amend Title V, Article 2, Section 9 of the Constitution, presented by our Government Relations Director. How much time will you need tonight? Brilliant.
Okay, so yeah, so this bill, you've heard Farzad and I talk about it a little bit because it came up during like the Her Campus funding and some different bills like that. And so basically this is just to create a shared storage closet run through Silk. And so it would just be a place for all the organizations to house all of their decorations or items that they buy through Student Senate. And so this would also create, less waste in funding so that we're not consistently like rebuying items. And so we can just have a shared space for all organizations to be able to house like all of their items, and then also a place for them to go to request to use these items.
Any questions for our speaker? Chris? All right, can we get a catch box? I'm guessing the amendment is to switch it to the correct place in the budget code. I was thinking section
I
6.
have it written. I can send,
Oh,
I'm sending it to you on.
Amazing.
I think it counts for that. Somebody had to. You're just the one top of things.
Can you see my eyes? Can you see my eyes? What is ver mis ojos?
Okay, the amendment should now be added as it was written. If you can go ahead and scroll down, Danae. All right, so there's the amendment. It's just switching it pretty much. Does that look good to you, Danae? And Chris, does that follow your writing? Good?
Yeah.
Awesome. All right, so we have a motion to amend from Chris. Do I see a second to this amendment? Second from Blake. All right, and is there anyone who objects to this amendment being added to the legislation? Seeing none, the bill is amended. Do I see a motion to call to question? I see a motion from Blake. I see a second from Chris. Is there anyone who objects to moving to a vote on this matter? All right, seeing none. Thank you very much, Danae. You may sit down. And we'll go ahead and get that posted in the Teams. All right, that has now been posted to the Students Assembly channel. Do you agree with Senate Bill 23-88? Yes, if you approve the amendment. No, if you do not, and abstain to stay out of the discussion. A reminder that this amendment will require a 2/3 vote to pass.
That's Sam's gonna come. Sam's gonna come.
Is there anyone who has not voted on this legislation that wishes to do so or has the ability to do so?
I think Sam's probably.
I just saw another vote roll in, so I'll allow 10 more seconds. Please get your vote in by then and we'll look to close after. All right, I'll move to close this vote unless there is any objection on the floor. Seeing none. All right. With a vote of 38 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, and 3 abstentions, this amendment passes unanimously. Now we'll go ahead and move on to the next item on our agenda, which is Senate Bill 23-84, presented by me.
How much time would our speaker like?
For this legislation, can I get 5 minutes?
Oh.
All right. Good. Awesome. All right, so this is a bill to appoint the next Internal Affairs Director to replace the Director of Justice as the administrator of the University of Kansas Student Senate Courts. As a summary, this legislation really blends the roles of the Internal Affairs Director currently and the Director of Justice, the position that we passed in Cycle 8. The goal of this legislation being to save Student Senate funds in the next administrative budget in this fiscal year and to give more of a purpose to the IA position as a whole. So whereas the position of Internal Affairs Director serves as the primary record keeper of the Student Senate, verifies that student senators would be in compliance with the Constitution and assists in the bureaucratic functions of the Senate. And whereas these duties would be complemented well with the duties of the Director of Justice, in particular, the assignment of court cases based on the Constitution, administering the operations of the branch, and ensuring compliance with the Constitution across the organization. And whereas the judicial branch is traditionally not operating with a heavy caseload, combining these positions would be optimal with a 20-hour student staff position. The IA Director's duties would not be greatly affected beyond the addition of 2 monthly meetings with the courts and maintaining communication on any matters concerning the judicial branch. And whereas the Director of Justice position currently does not justify any payment beyond a small stipend, and that is unacceptable for the equality of our branches and a balance of responsibility amongst the administrative positions of the Student Senate. And whereas this would enable Student Senate to function effectively next year, therefore be it enacted that Senate shall implement this amendment and elect the next Internal Affairs Director at the 23 Joint Senate. Therefore, be it further enacted that the members of the Assembly shall elect any University of Kansas student as the next Internal Affairs Director. And therefore be it further enacted that the IA Director article in Title II be removed from the Constitution. And therefore be it further enacted that the Senate Constitution be amended to reflect the following changes. So the changes that we're primarily seeing here, so the section of the Constitution where the Director of Justice was implemented is essentially being taken over by this new Internal Affairs Director position. So that will be in Title IV, Article 2. And so we'll essentially just rename them through a lot of this article. So a lot of the duties are remaining fairly the same. In regards to Article 4, I also added this one to add an enforcement component to it. It said they shall maintain awareness of Senate activities and investigate anything that might be in breach. But this also adds if the IA Director discovers noncompliance with the Constitution, they'll have the authority to file a complaint with Studex or the Concourt just to allow some appropriate avenues of justice for those cases. The Internal Affairs Director is also going to be reviewing all expenses requested by candidates following the decision of the EC. I felt it would be more democratic to leave any decisions related to expenses with the EC for the next year. They've been doing a fantastic job this election cycle, and I have no doubt they'll continue to do that. Then you'll really see the other part of the amendment, which is basically just adding all of the current internal affairs duties to the position of the Director of Justice here. And so you're just having all of these added. And then finally, I also put if the Director of Internal Affairs 1-year term ends or any vacancy in the office, or if there's any vacancy in the office, this vacancy shall be filled by the Students' Assembly. The Students' Assembly shall fill the vacancy as follows, the same sort of like parameters in which we elect the speaker by, but it's for the Internal Affairs Director. And then finally, they just have their serving boards and committees, which currently includes the Assembly and Studex. And I went ahead and made them a voting member on Studex for that purpose. Any questions?
Are there any questions for our Vice President? Chris?
How do you believe this will affect the workload of the Internal Affairs Director?
I don't believe it should affect it too much. The Internal Affairs Director workload is very much based on the maintenance of records in Student Senate. So looking at like keeping minutes and making sure everything else is on track. I think that in terms of the duties of the judicial branch, they're fairly light. And so, like I said, I think they'll blend well within a 20-hour position, especially if we're looking at like the meeting obligation only be extended by 1 or 2 more meetings a month with the Constitutional Court and the EC. They could even combine that meeting if they want to, but it's just having that touchstone meeting with the judicial branch so that they know what they're doing and that the elections run smoothly along with like any court cases. What this will also entail is that the IA director is going to be looking at anything that gets submitted to the courts, and that should really only be additional duties by email.
Any
Thank you.
additional questions? Going once, going twice. Thank you very much, Alyssa. You may sit
Thank
down.
you. Any negative speeches or any motions to vote on this legislation? I see a motion.
Motion to call the question.
Motion to call to question from Kevin. I see a second from Chris. All right, is there anyone who objects to moving to this legislation? All right, seeing none, we will move to a vote on this matter. And can you say Bill 2023-84? All right, that vote has now been posted in the Students' Assembly channel. Do you agree with Senate Bill 23-84? Yes, if you do, no, if you do not, and abstain to stay out of the discussion. This bill will also need 2/3 to pass. Sadie, did I see you walk in?
Yeah.
Lovely. All right, do you want to do your officer report after this vote or at the end of the meeting?
I was just gonna do it at the end.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I figured we might get it out of the way earlier.
I mean, I can do it now. I just didn't want to disrupt the flow of the meeting, so just.
Mhm. How do people feel? Do you think we should go with the officer report now or at the end of the meeting?
Let's do it
Now, okay. All right, so we'll do it after we finish this vote, Sadie, so you don't have to get up immediately. Oh, Sadie, we'll do it after the vote closes, so you can have some time, sorry.
Stressful. I feel like I just got like snitched on in front of like the class.
I believe it. Not
All right, is there anyone who has not yet voted on this matter that has the ability to do so? Camden, have you voted yet? All right. Seeing no objections, I'm going to move to close this poll. And with a vote of 38 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, and 1 abstention, this legislation passes unanimously. All right, can I get a motion to amend the agenda to move the president's officer report to be our next item of business? All right, motion from Trey. Do I see a second? I see a second from Anna Sophia. All right, and is there anyone who objects to amending the agenda in the following way? Seeing none, the agenda is amended. How much time do you need, Sadie? Brilliant.
Okay, so the only two big things that I have to share with you all is updates regarding our meeting this past Monday with the chancellor. As always, we check back in with past resolutions from Student Senate is one of our main things, and just making sure that we're staying on top of everything. And so one of the first things that we discussed with the chancellor, especially with the recent passage of legislation in the Kansas House and Senate, specifically anti-LGBTQ legislation, and trying to ensure that we could get more support for KU students who may be affected by that in a myriad of ways, as well as what that rhetoric means for KU students. And so we proposed some ideas of what could be done further, and we're provided with assurance that there would be a lot of on-campus resources and messaging and more push forward throughout this week and next regarding that specifically. We also asked about the state of higher education funding update. And for you all to know too, both myself and then this year's chair of the Finance Council are going to present the 2024 proposed campus fee here at the May KBOR meeting in Topeka to the Fiscal Affairs and Audit Committee. And so that's where we stand there. We're pretty on par with our little bit over, it's 2.94% increase of a fee or whatever it is. And we're pretty on standard or below what other universities have asked. So we're pretty sure that we're in a good space there. We also addressed some issues that have arisen with concerns regarding student housing and raised those to the chancellor's level as well, specifically from a resident assistance perspective. And then after that, we just kind of relayed what our transition processes were going to be on the KBOR end of things, what I've been spending a lot of time on this week and last, and and next week as well. We're just prepping a student rights proposal of basically painting a picture of what it looks like to be a student, what our responsibilities are, what our rights are, and how that contrasts to faculty and stuff, and just kind of highlighting some of those blank spaces. And that's at the request of the chair of academic affairs and of the regions. So
You don't need any additional time, do you?
unless there's questions.
Any
Kind of-
questions for our
kind of bland.
president?
I was going to save it for the end, so we could just be halfway out, but
Well, seeing no questions, thank you very much, Sadie.
Any-
All right, there's one less thing to do at the end of our meeting here. All right, so now we'll go on to the next item of business here, which is Bill 86, a bill to clarify the requirements to become a student senator, also presented by me.
How much time do you need?
3 minutes.
Okay, you're good to go.
All right, so this is a bill to, as I said, clarify the eligibility requirements to become a student senator and stay a student senator. It also addresses some of the issues we have in terms of membership of our student councils. So whereas language present in Title II of the Senate Constitution could be clearer in terms of who's allowed to vote and serve on the assembly and within our student councils, and whereas this language should be corrected to avoid further confusion, therefore be it enacted that the Constitution be amended to reflect the following changes. So in Title II, Article 4, covering the term of office, the amendment I'm looking to make is to add student senators must remain a regularly enrolled student as defined in Title I, Article 9, Section 1.1 to maintain their seat in the Students' Assembly. This refers to any registered student enrolled in at least 1 credit hour of coursework at the University of Lawrence campus, coursework through the Office of Study Abroad, or through a 4-credit internship through a KU academic department or school shall count as coursework at the Lawrence campus. This is already in our general provisions in terms of the language that is required to be a student senator. Putting it here adds some transparency to the role in terms of what is required to stay a student senator. And it also puts us in compliance with University Senate Code language in relation to student senators and the senators from all constituencies in the University Senate. Title II, Article 8, Section 1 is all, or rather Article 13, Section 1 is also amended here, student councils, general speaking and voting rights. Some of you may remember earlier in the semester, this was a bit of a word jumble in terms of like having to like interpret who gets to be a speaking member versus a voting member and how that membership rolls out. So I went ahead and tried to correct that as much as I could. And now it states any student at KU is eligible to be a voting member of a student council. Previous attendance shall not be required for general membership in a student council, and speaking rights shall be extended to any University of Kansas student. Voting rights shall only be extended to students after attending the second consecutive meeting where the student is documented as being in attendance. And so, yeah, that's what I got. Do we have any questions?
Any questions for our speaker?
Motion to vote.
A motion has been cast to vote by Austin Christ. Is there a second? I see a second from Kevin Barnes. I will now pass the chair back to the vice president. Thank you very much.
Thank you all very much. All right, so that has now been properly made and seconded, and so we'll be proceeding to that vote in the Students Assembly channel. I feel like we're on like a back and forth sports announcer sort of thing right
Another commentator.
now.
Call me Joe Buck. Oh my God, Jim. Can't believe what we're seeing here today.
All right, that has now been posted in the channel. Do you agree with Senate Bill 86? Yes, if you do, no, if you do not, and abstain to stay out of the discussion. And I'll allow another 30 seconds to vote. Please get your votes in quick. The quicker we vote, the quicker we leave.
I don't know about that, Jim. You shouldn't have given me this idea last year. You have, in fact. Robust.
All right, is there anyone who has not yet voted on this matter that wishes to do so? All right, seeing no objections, I will close this vote. And with a vote of 37 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, and 0 abstentions, this legislation passes unanimously. All right, and now on to the next item on our agenda, Bill 89, a bill to implement a line of succession for the president. This will be the last piece of legislation I present this evening.
Been a fantastic performance so far this evening by the vice president. We'll see if they're able to keep it up. How much time do you need?
Let's do 5.
Okay, you're good to go.
All right. This is a bill to implement a line of succession for the student body president role. The date of submission here, this amendment establishes a line of succession for the student body presidency. So whereas the Student Senate lost its line of succession with the passage of SB 23-41 due to the position of VP and speaker being formally separated from one another, and whereas the line of succession is necessary to deal with any unforeseen circumstances that might lead to a vacancy or multiple vacancies in the future, therefore be it enacted that the Student Senate shall enact a line of succession for the student body presidency, and therefore be it further enacted that the Senate Constitution shall be amended to reflect the following changes. So this is going to be a new section under the student body president part of the Constitution. It'll be in Title III, Article 3, Section 4. And it will state the line of succession in the event of a vacancy in the office of student body president, the student body vice president shall resume the office of student body president in accordance with Title III, Article 4, Section 1.1 of this Constitution. If the student body vice president is unwilling or unable to proceed with assuming the role of student body president, the line of succession shall be as follows: Speaker, Director of Justice, who will be Internal Affairs Director now that that legislation is passed, Coordinator of Staff, and Treasurer. If each person in the line of succession rejects or is otherwise unable to assume the office of student body president, the matter shall be remanded to the Students' Assembly and placed on the agenda of the next Students' Assembly meeting. And it's the same exact process that pretty much follows in terms of like speaker elections, internal affairs director elections, allowing the Students' Assembly to vote for whoever they wish to be president if the line of succession is exhausted. To provide further context into like why this happened, we basically had the speaker bill, which brought the election of the speaker over to the speaker and then cut it from the VP role. And now the VP is just appointed by the president if there's ever a vacancy in that office. And so what this does is essentially corrects that error and implements this line of succession so that after the VP, there's a clear line of succession as to who will take the student body presidency and how it will transfer. Any questions?
Any questions? Such a scintillating explanation, it seems. Turner has a question. Go ahead.
Where'd you come up with the order after VP? Like how, why?
Oh, the order after VP. I went ahead and did the heads of each of the branches. So we have the head of the legislative branch after VP, which is the Speaker of the Assembly, and the Director of Internal Affairs is the head of the judicial branch. I felt like these positions fit well because they're already major leadership positions in the Student Senate, and they're all already also elected by the Students' Assembly. So we have this process at the end here. This essentially skips that process for these two positions because they already have been elected and entrusted by the Students' Assembly. And then for the coordinator of staff and treasurer, I felt those were two positions that we should implement in the executive side, just in case these two fall through. This was sort of like in similarity with what we have with the current presidential line of succession in the United States, and sort of like allowing some cabinet positions to fall in that line of succession. I didn't think it needed to be all, but I definitely think like the main leadership positions such as chief of, or rather coordinator of staff and treasurer fit well for that.
Any further questions? Going once, going twice. Thank you very much, Alessia.
Thank you. Right. Do I see a motion to vote?
Yeah.
Motion from Austin. Do I see a second? All right, second from Ethan. Is there anyone who objects to moving towards a vote on this matter? All right, seeing none, we'll open that in the Students' Assembly channel. If you've not noticed, Senate Bill 23-89's vote has been put in the Students' Assembly channel. Yes, if you agree with the legislation. No, if you do not. Abstain to stay out of the discussion. All right, if you've not yet voted, please make sure to get that in the next 30 seconds. Also, Alicia Swimmer, if I could have you come up to the front real quick, please. All right, is there anyone who has not yet voted on this matter that has the ability to do so? Seeing no objections, I'll move to close this vote. All right, and with a vote of 39 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, or actually 40 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, and 0 abstentions, this legislation passes unanimously. You know, as vice president, I'm usually fairly impartial, but thank you very much for passing those 3 bills. Appreciated. All right, so now we'll go ahead and move on to the next item on the agenda, which is the resolution to recognize May 1st through 5th, 2023 as missing and murdered. Sorry, the language isn't changed there. Missing and murdered Indigenous women, girls, Two-Spirit, and trans folks awareness week. And that'll be presented by our Senator Alicia Swimmer. And how much time will you need?
Probably just 5 minutes.
5 minutes? All right. I left my phone up there.
Yeah. Is this on already?
It'll be the next one there. It should be at least. So if you click that one. Here on the end, yeah. Cool.
Is the mic on?
Yeah, the mic's on.
Okay. Han Madakiapi, Alicia Swimmer, Machiapi.
Please give your attention to our presenter.
I'm the Student Senate Representative for the First Nation Student Association.
My name is Nashk. I am the president of the First Nations Student Association, and I'd just like to thank you all for allowing us to be here to present this resolution.
This resolution is to recognize May 1st to 5th, 2023 as Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women, Girls, Two-Spirit, and Trans Folks Awareness Week at the University of Kansas. MMIWG2ST is an issue that affects everyone. In 2020, 5,295 Indigenous women and 4,276 Indigenous men were reported missing in the United States. And that's according to the FBI's National Crime and Information Center. The BIA estimates there are approximately 4,200 missing and murdered Indigenous cases that have gone unsolved. The jurisdictional issues we face in Indian country just exacerbates the pain of the loved ones of these people who remain missing and murdered. This is something that we're concerned about in our community because these are our relatives. We are working in conjunction with other organizations in the community like the Indigenous Community Center, the School of Social Welfare, Indigenous Studies, Haskell Indian Nations University. And then this is just what we want to do as the First Nation Student Association to help KU bring more awareness to this issue that we face. Upon passage of this resolution, the Senate would be supporting the events held during the week of May 1st to 5th, 2023, and demonstrate solidarity with the families of our relatives. And these are the people we'd like it sent to: is the Chancellor, the Provost, Executive Vice Chancellor, Vice Provost for DEIB, Dean of School of Social Welfare, Director of Indigenous Studies, Director of Tribal Relations, President of the Native Staff and Faculty Council, President of the University Senate, so they can also get on board with the situation that's going on. And we appreciate your support on this. Thank you.
All right, do we have any questions for our presenters? Question from Chris.
Just out of curiosity, why the name change?
We just wanted to put relatives, but the women and girls and the Two-Spirit and trans folks are actually more targeted. And also working with our community partners, we wanted to have a cohesive labeling of our awareness. So that's what the Indigenous Community Center, School of Social Welfare, Haskell, they already have this wording. And we want to just come across as, you know, so it's more memorable. So we're not having, there are several acronyms with this, like MMIW, MMIR. So we just wanted to put it how we're concentrating on it. And just like Vice President said, there's issues with trans folks being targeted as well.
Thank you.
Any other questions, or did that answer your question, Chris? Brilliant. Any other questions? Motion to vote from Austin, second from Kevin. All right, is there anyone who objects moving towards a vote on this resolution? All right, seeing none, we'll move to a vote. Thank you very much, you both. All right, do you agree with Senate Bill 306? Yes, if you do, no, if you do not, and abstain to stay out of the discussions. You can find that in the assembly channel. And let's try to get votes in the next 30 seconds. All right, is there anyone who has not yet voted on this matter that has the ability to do so? Seeing none, we'll close this vote. And with a vote of 40 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, and 1 abstaining, this resolution passes unanimously. All right, and now we'll move to advance to the last item on our agenda for this evening, which is Senate Resolution 23-307, a resolution for Jewish community solidarity. And that's presented by you, Blake, correct? How many minutes would you like? 8? All right. It should be the last one. Yeah, on the right.
All right,
Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Cool.
So the first thing I noticed about this is it wasn't amended to include, actually in Social Justice Council, we amended it to have the sponsorship of the whole council. So that's one thing that's not on this,
Okay.
but yeah, this is a bill that I worked on for almost the past 4 months, maybe, been working on it for quite a while. In collaboration with a lot of professors, different faculty within the Jewish Studies Department, within different leaders of within the Jewish community across the university. So there's a few things. Basically, this resolution is urging the University of Kansas administration to do a few things regarding the Jewish Studies program. So I will go line by line. So we have this whereas clause, which saying University of Kansas Student Senate strongly disagrees with the actions taken by the amendment, but taken by the University of Kansas administration in their attempts to shut down, demote, or cancel Jewish Studies program initiatives at the university. So in conversations that I had with different faculty and different professors in the Jewish Studies program, one thing that they mentioned is that, they feel like they have to have a standalone program. The university has done different investigation, has done different things to maybe try to combine them with maybe political science or global international studies. But, they feel, like they provide a safe space for our Jewish students here at the university as being a standalone Jewish studies program. This bill talks about different instances across campus where we have seen increased rates of anti-Semitic rhetoric and tropes, whether that's, different stickers or things written around campus, whether that's incidents that faculty and students have faced of anti-Semitism. One thing that I talked about with the professors within the Jewish Studies program is that they want to emphasize to the university administration a few things that they feel like they need. One is study abroad opportunities for Jewish studies students, the hiring of more faculty, the expansion of courses offered by the Jewish Studies program, and then the promotion of overall growth of the Jewish Studies program. One big thing as well is that they talked about they have had this Baron Chair within the Jewish Studies program for, I want to say, upwards of 5 years now, that and this chair specifically is one that the administration has to fill. So it's not one that anybody appoints, but it's one that the university administration fills. And the university has refused to do so, or hasn't done so within the last 5 years. The last part too is encouraging the university to include mandatory training and education on religious discrimination. So whether that's Islamophobia, whether that's anti-Semitism, these are important aspects of what makes students on our university who they are. Faith is a big part of that, and religion is a big part of that. So that's something that through talking to students of different backgrounds and of talking to professors in the Jewish Studies program, these are some key highlights that they said. We have training that we all have to do that's mandated at the beginning of the year. We should also include training to make sure that those of different religious backgrounds are protected, or at least there's it's something that's being talked about. This talks about the Baron Chair right here. This talks about maybe stronger enforcing of title violations, when it comes to anti-Semitism. And then upon the passing of this, it'd be sent to the following.
Do we have any questions for our speaker? Question from Chris?
Previous question,
Oh, Zachariah, had you?
never mind,
Oh.
withdrawn.
All right, withdrawn. Zachariah, you can go ahead and present your question.
I think this is irrespective of the bill. This is a really interesting bill. I think this is doing a lot of great things. But what do you think can be done in order to ensure continuity? There's a lot of actionable items here, but we're reaching the end of administration. So how can we ensure that in the fall, once the next administration transitions, that these actionable items can be followed through?
Yeah, well, I think, passing this bill as a student assembly, I think speaks volumes, making sure that we're standing up with this community that might feel disenfranchised. Ultimately, anti-Semitism is wrong. And so I would hope that in conversations that the next administration, whoever they should be, would have conversations with the administration on how to actually maybe enforce some of these things. And it would be more of a partnership in terms of actually, seeing some of these things actually get done. And continuing to talk about it, because these problems that every student might not realize across campus are going on. It helps when we talk about them, and we call them out for what they are. Anti-Semitism, any discriminatory remarks are bigoted. So I think that it's important that just via conversations with the administration, and then standing together as a body as well tonight by passing this legislation, moves in a very positive way in doing that.
At the beginning of the legislation, it said that some events or programs were canceled. Can you give light as to what those were?
Where at on here?
It's like in the red. Keep going.
Right here.
Or somewhere. My eyes are kind of blurry. at the
No
moment,
worries.
but-
I think I can kind of touch on it. If I don't answer what you're asking, I can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just go.
Yeah. So like I said, this is something that I spoke with a lot of faculty within the Jewish Studies program about, and different Jewish students as well, and leaders within the Jewish community across our campus. And something that they have kind of seen maybe as a theme of what the university administration is trying to do is maybe say, maybe we don't need this specific program as a standalone. And they have tried to, by different means, to merge this program with different departments across campus. And that was something that, the faculty that I spoke with and the students that I spoke with were, very strongly against, because the Jewish Studies program, is such an important part of, providing a safe space for the Jewish community on our campus. So did that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Other questions on the floor? Or a motion?
Motion to vote.
Motion to vote from Austin. I saw a second from Kevin. Is there anyone who objects to moving to a vote on this legislation? All right, seeing none, we'll move to a vote. Thank you very much, Blake.
Thank you.
We're bringing it back. We've been at certain.
I think you were both for it, but I also.
Yeah, that's fair.
No matter what the issue is.
We're.
All right, that has now been posted to the Students Assembly channel. Do you agree with Senate Resolution 23-307? Please vote yes if you do, no if you do not, and abstain to stay out of the discussion.
The phone is ringing. There's a man. Yeah. What do you say? No, I said, really, I think we're on like gaslighting. I just now show up, like I'm going to stay on, you know, I'm like, yeah. I would know. I love Good show. Oh, so yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Might have forgotten the song, but I remember the character. Okay. Yeah. I watched Arthur for a while. That show was so good. Yeah, I mean, she got like what was coming to her in like half the episode. So there's that one episode where Arthur like punches her in the face. Yeah. She didn't even know how to read. She couldn't have seen it coming. The Tibble twins. I loved Arthur, dude. They shouldn't have canceled that show.
All right, we'll go through it. All right, has everyone voted on this matter that wishes to do so? All right, seeing no one else voting on this matter, I will go ahead and close this vote. And with a vote of 38 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, and 2 abstentions, this resolution clearly passes. I will say like a small procedural thing in terms of the entire Social Justice Council being listed as the sponsor. I wasn't able to verify that with the minutes. And so like if you'd like to sponsor this resolution, please make sure to add your name to the list of sponsors at the end of the vote tally. So sorry. All right, and with that, oh, Turner, do you have a motion now? In committee of the whole? All right, can you explain the reason as to like why, so we can like consider it?
All right, there's a bill that I brought to committee of the whole last week in finance that passed unanimously.
Can we also get a catch box? Sorry. End of the meeting here.
This is really quick. It's about mock trials, reallocation of their line funding. It needs to be approved in assembly. It was approved in finance last week.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it does. It'll be quick.
All right, given that context, is there anyone who seconds Turner's motion? Second from Ethan. All right, Is there anyone who objects to this motion?
To be sure.
All right, seeing none. We are in committee of the whole. Turner, you can present the legislation and then we'll exit. Oh, and I also wanted to list this as a reminder, since it's an event that we funded. The Her Campus Formal is going to be taking place on the 14th of April, this Friday, from 7 to 9 p.m. It's going to happen in the Kansas Memorial Union in the ballroom, which is just one floor up from here. So if you're interested in attending and having a perfect fairy tale evening as the flyer lists, please make sure to do that. All right.
All right, I will need like 2 minutes.
Okay.
I guess I don't need to do that.
Do you have like the bill itself?
Yeah, I have the bill, but I can just, I emailed it to your email.
Okay, I'll get it posted and then you can just
Okay.
discuss the legislation now.
Okay, basically, KU mock trial had leftover funding in their line item account because unfortunately they did not make it to nationals this year. So they want to purchase supplies that they can use for years forward. So it repurposes $1,312 of their funding for things like case boxes, evidence covers, legal pads, pens, hanging files, batteries, twin timers. That's it. It was approved in finance.
Do we have any questions? I'll also provide the parliamentary procedure portion of this in terms of like amending this. So Student Senate has the ability to amend its budget like any point during the year with a 2/3 vote. And so this in particular amends the line item allocation budget that Student Senate uses throughout the year. And so that's what we're doing here, is amending the budget in line item to amend the request of mock trial. And then that is going to need a 2/3 vote to pass, since it is an amendment. The bill was just posted on the channel. Can you get to it, Turner? It would be, if you close that
This is close.
and then scroll.
All right, yes, first of all, I would like to thank Mock Trial for coming so many times this year to talk to Student Senate. We love your input, if anybody's here tonight, but also motion to move out of committee of the whole with the bill.
All right, I have a motion from Kevin. Do I see a second? I see a second from Evan. All right, and is there anyone who objects to moving out of committee of the whole with this legislation? All right, seeing none. We are out of committee of the whole. And with that, is there any other question? Are there any other questions on the floor or a motion? Motion to call to question from Ethan. Do I see a second? I see a second from Anna Sophia. All right, and is there anyone else who objects to calling question on this legislation? I didn't think so, since it's our last item of business. All right, so we'll move to a vote. As I said, this will require 2/3 to pass. If that has now been posted, do you agree with Turner's bill? Yes, if you do, no, if you do not, and abstain to stay out of the discussion.
I don't think you see it.
I also got to say, we've passed 12 pieces of legislation and we're going to be out of here before 8 p.m. That is miraculous for Student Senate. All right, everyone else, get your votes in the next 15 seconds. Come on, let's do it.
No, I did not believe that. Our proper.
All right. Anyone else who needs to vote on this matter that has the ability to do so? Seeing no objections, I'll close this vote. And with a vote of 36 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, and 1 abstention, this amendment to the budget passes. Announcements, question mark, motion to adjourn. Motion to adjourn from Austin, second from Josefa. Do we see